Hi there, hello everyone who is joining us on our Facebook page here. Great to have you here on a Sunday evening. Thanks very much for tuning in to our live stream. My name is Kyle, and I am the co-founder of Prout, an upcoming LGBTQ meetup and support platform dedicated to improving the lives of the community through self-help resources as well as interesting events happening around not just Singapore but the region. Thank you very much for joining us. Just saying hi to Sekla. Sekla, hi. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll just wait for a couple more people to join us before we invite our guest today. And today we are talking about something that is very important to the LGBTQ community, and that is drug usage. How can the LGBTQ plus community stay drug free? Now, that is the question that was posed by Oogachaga, which is a social group here, which we will ask our guest later to talk a little bit more about. The group has been running for the past 19 years and has been providing resources and counseling for the LGBTQ plus community. And they recently launched a campaign called Our Story is Drug Free, which aims to answer the question, can the LGBTQ plus community have a drug-free story? Now, we'll, of course, be talking a little bit more about this later on. Just to say hi to everyone that is currently watching. Vasily, hi. Tasha, hi. How are you doing? Great to have you guys on. If you have any questions for our guests, you can write them in the comments below. We also have collected some fan questions on our earlier link. So hello to everyone that's watching. Before we invite our guests, we actually just want to make a bit of an announcement. So this is the fourth current live Q&A that we have had with LGBTQ plus change makers, and this is part of a bigger initiative to include more resources that could be made available for the community. And we have actually recently compiled all of this and launched a new feature on our website called Support Resources. So if you go onto our website, proutapp.com, you'll see a new tab on our navigation bar called Support Resources, and you can find all our previous current live resources as well as ones that are to come. We have some fantastic topics lined up coming for you later within the next few weeks. We have an interesting conversation about financial wellness that is happening later on as well. We will also be speaking to more people about topics like mental health as well as sexual wellness. So we really appreciate all your support, and if you would like to recommend a topic for us, well, feel free to drop us a note on our Facebook Messenger. We will be replying to you, and we will of course take note of any other topics that you would like us to cover to provide more dedicated resources for the community. So that's enough from us. We will now invite our guest. Our guest is the Executive Director of Oogachaga, which is a support network that has been doing resources and counseling for the LGBTQ plus community for the past decade and more. We'll be speaking to Yangfa. So we'll just invite him right now into the stream. All right, so Yangfa will be joining us screen here, and we'll be asking, of course, about the campaign. If you want to find out more about the campaign, you can visit www.ourstorysdrugfree.com. You can also search using the hashtag OurStoryIs. Some people will be posting some stories on their Instagram. Oogachaga has done so as well, and you can take part in. Hello, Yangfa. How are you
Hello,
doing
hi.
today?
I'm good.
Everyone
How's
is doing
everyone?
great over here on the Prout side. Thank you very much for speaking to us today. We really appreciate you making time for us on a Sunday evening.
Sure. I'm just trying to get myself
Sure,
organized
no
with.
worries, no worries.
Right.
So maybe just to
Okay.
inform everyone that's currently speaking right now, Yangfa is of course from Oogachaga. a network that has been supporting the LGBTQ plus community for the past decade or more. I think we're going into about 19 years, if I'm not mistaken, Yangfa.
Yes, that's right. Next year will be our 20th anniversary. We were founded in
That's
1999.
That is amazing. And I just would like to share maybe a personal story because I was a victim of rape at about maybe 5, 6 years ago, and was dealing with issues like anxiety, dealing with how can I make myself, a better person. And Oogachaga was the resource that was first in my mind, and you guys have been helping you guys have been helping me on my journey as well as other people. So I think we really want to thank you for all the services that you're providing for the community. It really means a lot that you are there as a constant platform and a constant resource for people to come to.
You're most welcome. Glad you thought of us and got the help and support you need.
Thank you. No worries. And so maybe I'd just like to hear from you. So could you just tell us a little bit more for those who maybe are not in the know as well about Oogachaga, and how has Oogachaga supported the community for the past 19 years or so?
So when Oogachaga was first founded in the late 90s, 1999, it was a group of people, gay and bisexual men at the time, who came together to receive and provide support for each other. So the very first Oogachaga group was an actual support group of people sitting in somebody's living room, providing that informal support. And over the years, they recruited more volunteers, professional counselors and social workers and psychologists to come together, in addition to providing support for each other, to also make available a counseling service for the community as well, in particular LGBTQ plus individuals and couples and occasionally families as well. And then from there, from the support group, went on to start the face-to-face counseling service. And then over time, this is an opportunity for us to raise more money and then resources. So we started a hotline service as well. And then that included, it moved on to become an email counseling service, as well as more recently, the WhatsApp counseling services as well. And since it's been 10 years since we've had a team of full-time professional staff. So actually this year marks the 10th year that we've got a team of full-time professional staff. As an organization, we're coming to 20. For half that time, we've had full-time professional staff continuously supported by our team of volunteers as
That's
well.
fantastic. Really, really great to hear. And of course, I think we can find out more about all these services on your website, yes? Oogachaga.com?
Yes, oogachaga.com as well as oogachaga.lgbt.
Fantastic.
We've got the
You
domain
included
name.
the .lgbt fix on the end.
Yes.
That's great. We will link them later in the description as well, so that whoever is watching can visit your platform and find out more about your services. And I just have one very curious question. How do you do it? How do you run the service and keep everything together? You have full-time counselors, you're also running fundraising. How what's it like, doing what you do?
Well, I suppose I can safely speak on behalf on not just the team we have right now, the team of staff and volunteers, but for the past 19 years, our numerous staff who have come and gone, as well as volunteers, some of them have stayed with us for many, many years as well. All that hard work and dedication, certainly for volunteers, very important, the time and contributions they make in terms of the skills, and also the full-time staff who have been with us over the years, all that, the combined efforts and contributions from everyone. I mean, we don't run this, nobody can run the service alone, certainly teamwork, dedication, having the right fit, having the right people in the team as well to contribute the time, the skills, the knowledge as well. So over the years, we've been very, very, I suppose I can say, we've been fortunate to have been supported by all those staff and volunteers over the years. So it's been great. So the community has contributed to us, and we've given back to the community
That's
as well.
fantastic. And of course, we really hope that, we might see, hopefully the next few years as well will be as equally fantastic for you and your team. So we just wanted to talk about this campaign that Oogachaga launched, and this goes into our topic of how can the LGBTQ plus community stay drug-free? Now, obviously, drug usage has been a big talking point within our community for maybe the past few years or so, it's beginning to bubble into the surface. And your organization started this campaign called "Our Story is Drug Free." And thank you, of course, for inviting us to your launch event as well that happened last month. But can you talk a little bit more about why did you decide to start up the campaign, and what's the objective of the campaign?
Sure, precisely because in recent years, I mean, we've become aware of a lot of news, mainstream news highlighting the so-called drug problem in the local gay community. Unfortunately, instances of very high-profile gay community leaders who have been either caught, arrested, or even sentenced for drug offenses, and this has been happening kind of on and off for the past, I can safely say, 5 to 10 years. And so that has been very unfortunate. Some of the cases have been very high profile, and we acknowledge that. We acknowledge that this is happening or has been happening in our community. And then so some of us got together in the past, well, sometime last, we got together and realized that, well, even as we are acknowledging that drug use is an issue, is a problem in the community, perhaps it's also time for us to think about how, well, there are also so many other voices that need to be heard in our community. So, for example, if we look back to the high-profile cases, it's been very unfortunately, we just focus on gay men who had been in trouble with the law because of drug use. So even as we acknowledge that is part of our very diverse community, maybe it's time for us to also listen out for or look at the other stories that we have in our very diverse communities. So again, very deliberately when we conceptualize this campaign, we state with the tagline, "Our story is." So it's really about, well, much as we want our stories, our lives to be drug-free, we also want to acknowledge that there's so many other stories out there from women, from transgender people, older people, allies as well. So that's very important. And those stories that we have, it's not just about drugs. So I know that term drug-free can be quite controversial. In fact, very thankfully, we've had some comments from different people about how that term drug-free can be so loaded. Maybe just as a point of clarification, when we came up with this campaign, we just wanted to target, in a way, if you will, a very, very specific target audience, and an audience that maybe are not currently or in the near future exploring drugs or may not have any experience of drugs. So really it's about staying that way. So even as we're exploring other narratives, other stories in our local queer communities, to acknowledge that, well, our lives don't have to involve drugs. If you are drug-free, stay that way. That's okay. There's also so many other stories and opportunities, experiences to
I
have.
hear you. And thanks for putting in, of course, a bit more context into, not just the drug-free part, but other narratives as well. And I also know that, one of your faces that you have selected for the campaign is also a transgender woman, Cassandra Thung, who is from the website transgendersg.com. Yes. So thank you, of course, for doing that. I wanted to, zoom in on this topic a little bit. I know you mentioned about it a little bit, and before this started, we had a Facebook event page, and someone who had come into the comments had spoken a bit about the reality and the pragmatism of the situation, in that is it possible that in societies where being drug-free may or may not be so possible, right? Sure. Especially with continued usage and so on and so forth, multitude of ways. Is there a way in which a story can, there can be a way in which you can reduce harm without talking about a drug-free situation? So I just want to get your take about that, because I think that is something worth discussing about, especially given the fact that drug usage is still something that it's very difficult to combat.
I might even just take a step back. You just said that drug usage is a difficult issue to combat. Well, in Singapore, given our current context, drug use in the LGBTQ plus community is very difficult to talk about. So especially since we're surrounded by all the legislation that we're familiar with, and also all the stigma, taboo, and even that very term that we have, that we use in our campaign, drug-free itself is so loaded. So, for example, in some neighboring countries, in the Philippines, for example, the word drug-free has this connotation of let's eliminate drug use, eliminate drug users for the country. Certainly, when we use the term drug-free here, it hopefully doesn't or shouldn't have that kind of connotation. So, like I mentioned earlier, much as we acknowledge that drug use has become part of a community, I suppose as a community-based organization, as an LGBTQ organization, we are not yet in a position to talk about eliminating drug use in Singapore because in terms of resources, in terms of mandate, or in terms of capacity, we are just not able to do that. I don't think, I mean, I would be lying if I were to sit here and say, look, we're going to try and eliminate drug use in the LGBTQ community in Singapore. I wouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that. I wouldn't want to say that. So hence, we came up with this concept of talking about alternative, other narratives, in addition to the reality, unfortunate reality of drug use in our community right now. You mentioned harm reduction. Well, certainly in other parts of the world where drug legislation is very different, there's a lot of discourse and a lot of policies around our services and programs around harm reduction, especially for targeted communities. In Singapore, I can't do that, and we can't talk about that because of our drug legislation. I will get Oogachaga into trouble if we roll out programs of harm reduction. I can think of a few people who will be appearing on my doorstep if we talk about harm reduction. So that's unfortunately our reality. So we're just kind of playing around what we can. So talk about alternative other narratives apart from just drug use.
I hear you. So as we were obviously, for anyone that's watching, who may or may not have had an exposure to drug usage, like what would you say to them? How can they reconcile with their current addictions, and how can they move on and maybe lead uh, 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 whatever lives that they choose to lead from here on out?
I mean, the reality, I mean, we now know a lot about drug use, certainly a lot about drug use within LGBTQ communities. Certainly, we know a lot now about drug use by gay and bisexual men. So we know a lot about that. Whether or not it's applicable in the Singaporean context, of course, that of course is open for discussion as well. So, for example, in our language as well, it's very easy to assume that all drug users are addicts. We now know that's not always the case. So if you were to think of it in terms of a spectrum, so probably there are drug users who use once a month, or some people who use when they're with certain people. And then of course there are other users who can't go on without using. So that might be, along close on the spectrum of addiction. So I think that's something we have to acknowledge as well, how behaviors vary between people. And having said that, talking about you used the word reconciling. Well, I would start with just questioning what role do the drugs play in that person's life? What does it mean? Certainly, and sitting here in Singapore, I have to say, obviously, drug use, possession, consumption, trafficking is illegal. So certainly, I think we are all aware of that, painfully so, right? Because of the consequences. I mean, from a counselor's perspective, I'll be curious and worried about the role those drugs play in that person's life, even as you're aware that it's illegal. And also, well, I might just say that in addition to acknowledge that, well, probably what you're going through is not unique. You're not alone. So whether you're using it on your own, using it with partners, using it with strangers, what you're doing now is not unique. So what you're going through now, you're not alone. So for whatever reason, when you're ready to get that support is available for you. Only when you're ready. Nobody can make you reach out and get support if you're not ready. In Oogachaga, our counselling often operates on a voluntary kind of arrangement. So what it means is our clients seek help voluntarily. They're not mandated by a court order. They're not mandated by a parent or a teacher to come and see us. So that reaching out for help needs to be a voluntary one. It must be self-driven, self-motivated.
I hear you, and thanks for putting, of course, more context into that as well. I also do want to point out that there is a support group called Lifeline. If I'm not mistaken, we've been talking about them and posting about their events as well on our Telegram channel, which you can visit us by searching Prout app on Telegram. But we have been talking about them as well, and they're also a support group that deals with people that have had certain issues with drug consumption and are looking for a safe space to tell that. So I think it's just great to point that out. And so I wanted to just sort of wrap this up, right? And talk about, what is the underlying problem here with regarding drug usage, especially with regards towards the community. Is there an underlying mental health issue? What have you observed so far?
Okay, I mean, for some people, they may recognize that drug use is a mental health issue. It could be certainly because there's certain elements of mental health to it. For some people, certainly drug use can be an issue of physical health because it can affect physical health. If I were to stick my neck out, I would just say, well, drug use is a health issue. It's a health issue because it affects mental health, it affects physical health, it affects sexual health, it certainly affects community health as well. So very broadly speaking, drug use, whether illegal, excessive, addictive, or personal use, is a health issue because it affects us as individuals, as couples, as families, as communities, as well. It affects the health of all these things. So that's really important. So that's why you mentioned Lifeline, a fantastic group of people who have come together to provide that peer recovery support for people who choose to or want to recover from their drug use. So there's that. And of course, there's the counseling services that we provide. And there's also other community partners we work with as well to come together in a kind of a multidisciplinary way to hopefully provide a holistic care for the health of people who use drugs. Of course, at some point, many people will be concerned about legal implications, and that's a very real concern. And the privacy of our counseling rooms will provide the appropriate support as well, giving advice and obviously to talk about safety if it's a case of getting help from a statutory organization, say a restructured hospital, certainly there will be implications with the law as well. So that's all very real.
Right. I just wanted to, I think this is a good point to go to our fan question. We had someone actually send in a question on our question form. So thank you for the person that did that. Of course, as with all questions, the names will stay anonymous. But this is a question that ties in really to what you're saying. There is a group in Singapore called Narcotics Anonymous. And I think this is a general question as well. Are these groups, really safe for Singaporeans to attend without being monitored by the governing bodies, the Singapore governing body? And is there any current evidence to support this at the moment? I think there is a real concern here that going to a support group means, for some weird reason, they are colluding with the authorities, and therefore, I'm not able to safely share my story. What's your take on that?
Okay, again, I cannot and do not speak on behalf of NA, Narcotics Anonymous. What I do know of how they work is they really work on a very anonymous service model in that people come in, they don't have to disclose any details about themselves. They can identify themselves with a name, whatever name they're comfortable with. And really, yes, for some people who may be very worried, very anxious, there's a certain level of risk involved, the risk of exposure, the risk of meeting other people and having to disclose your drug use, that for sure. However, from what we know, it's very, very unlikely that these groups are being monitored by, say, the Central Narcotics Bureau, the CNB, the drug law enforcers. Because when you think about it, these groups are there for a reason, they're for support. I mean, Singapore is a small place. If enough of these groups become unsafe, then there won't be these groups anymore. And in the long run, everyone gets hurt. It doesn't do the community any favors. So what I do believe is that these groups are running anonymously, providing the support they need. And if there's a need for them to get further support beyond just a support group, they'll be referred on accordingly. So that much I know of. Short of actually asking somebody who has been to NA, I believe many people will actually tell you that it's a pretty safe place for them. If anything, support groups like these, actually provide other elements of informal social support as well. So that connection outside of the formal support groups, connection to stay sober, to stay away from drugs, even if it's temporary or short term.
I hear you, and that's I think very very comforting to note as well that there are safe places in which people can go to and be able to talk about whatever they're currently facing with regards towards consumption or maybe even addiction. Um, so I just wanted to talk a bit more about the campaign. It's been around for about a month so far. How has the reaction been?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the reaction has been really, really interesting. We have had some really useful feedback from the community as well. I mean, understandably, some segments of the community have expressed concerns that they felt somewhat left out of the campaign. So, like I mentioned earlier, that the campaign, or perhaps maybe that's something we overlooked as well. We overlooked explaining that the campaign really was a very targeted one. So it wasn't meant to be an overall campaign for everyone. Really, it's a very targeted campaign for people who either have not been or are not considering using drugs. So it's hard to support them to remain drug free. So we've had some very helpful feedback from people in the drug using community, sort of raising the feedback and concerns that as current or former drug users, they felt left out and that their needs weren't addressed from the campaign. So I just want to acknowledge that yes, we would love to have at some point, maybe perhaps in the future, to have a campaign that addresses the needs of those other groups, but maybe not in this current one. Give us maybe a bit of time to figure out how to run a drug-free campaign, because when we put our heads together to do this, we were really running conceptualizing Singapore's first community-led drug-free campaign for the LGBTQ community. So we've looked at obviously other drug-free campaigns run by the CNB, the government authorities. However, their campaign is very clearly for the mainstream community. What we were planning to do was something that's a lot more targeted for our own LGBTQ community. And again, by the time we wrap it up at the end of the year, maybe we'll ask for more feedback, and perhaps if resources and time allow, we might plan for future ones.
That's really great to hear, and I think it's a commendable effort that Oogachaga has got the ball rolling and had and really kickstarted this conversation on a more a broader level. I think there were some conversations that were happening, but this is something that's happening on this level, and of course there's a lot to be learned as well. And I think if people want to send in their any suggestions or any ideas, can they do so on your Facebook page or what?
Yes, certainly, yeah.
Yeah, so I think.
Or if for whatever reason they prefer to keep their feedback anonymous, they can drop us an email. So all the contact information is on our website, oogachaga.lgbt, or if you prefer to go direct to the microsite, it's ourstoryisdrugfree.com. Or there's other ways to connect with us as well through our Facebook and social media pages, Instagram and Twitter.
Fantastic.
So we welcome feedback. And again, we welcome anonymous feedback.
Fantastic. I think that's really great to hear. This is the last question that, of course, I see right here in the comments. Sekla sent in a question. Thanks so much for sending that in. She was asking, is it possible to share my story, but if it's not drug related? I understand that there is a section in the website, ourstoryisdrugfree.com, that allows you to submit and share a story. Could you just share to Sekla and of course our viewers a little bit more about that?
Sure, we welcome stories. And again, the plan, the next stage, there's a couple more stages to our campaign actually. So on Pink Dot, so it's my little plug, on Pink Dot Day itself on the 21st of July at Hong Lim Park, we will have a booth in the community tent, and our partner in the campaign, SG Narratives, they will have a booth next to us as well. And between the Oogachaga and SG Narratives booths, we will actually be doing something special as part of promoting the campaign. So if people want to just drop by and find out what's going to happen at our booths at Pink Dot. And again, for other people who wish to just come in and contribute their stories, yes, like I said, if you want to submit to the website, do that. If you prefer an email, do that too. And if we need more information, we'll get back to you, but we prefer to submit it just anonymously, that's fine too. And then so the next stage of the campaign is come September, October, later in the year. We'll put it all together into another campaign video to highlight all those stories and snippets that we've gathered. So that will be kind of just to wrap up the
Fantastic.
campaign, and then from there we'll again invite more feedback. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think it's really great to hear that, there's going to be a continuation to this. And we look forward to hearing from you as well. So I think, we want to wrap this up. We want to wrap up our chat. Just maybe a few other questions. So how can people support Oogachaga? Of course, I understand that Oogachaga is, your non-for-profit organization, correct me if I'm mistaken. And of course, you're looking for various ways to seek for support and donations. How can the community support you?
Sure. I mean, you can support Oogachaga in different ways. I mean, for a start, find out more about what we do. Find out about the issues that are important to us. So check out our website, again, oogachaga.lgbt. And then from there, just follow the links. We've been very fortunate recently. We've had a very generous grant from the Canadian High Commission, the government of Canada, to help revamp our websites.
Fantastic.
So the Oogachaga website, and then we've got the community resources portal, congregation.com. So there's lots of information there. And then, of course, there's a donation button as well for people who wish to make a monetary financial donation. At the moment, we are not actually actively recruiting volunteers. We will be recruiting another group of volunteers either later this year or next year, because we do run some of our counseling services with the help of volunteers, and we do provide training. So not at the moment, because we do need to plan that training program. Perhaps look out for it later this year or early next year. So in the meantime, next couple of months, we're going to be busy with Pink Dot and the Pink Fest activities as well. We'll be organizing 2 sold out heritage walks of Chinatown, the queer heritage of Chinatown. It's called Walk This Way. Unfortunately, I can't really advertise it anymore because both walks are full up. So we'll be busy with that. And then Pink Dot Day itself, we'll be busy. And then, of course, after Pink Dot, we'll be wrapping up the campaign, Our Story Is. So next few months will be kind of busy for us, and then maybe later in the year, with a bit more time, we'll start planning our next round of volunteer recruitment. And then along the way, we'll also be making plans for our 20th anniversary next year. So again, when we've got ourselves a bit organized, we may be recruiting more volunteers to help us with next year's anniversary celebration.
Fantastic. And of course, at any time,
so look out for that.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, our readers would love to, know a little bit more about that. Please let us know when you have, a volunteer recruitment up. We'll put the link, of course, in the description if people would like to, make a donation to Oogachaga. I just have one question before we wrap up, and this is really more not so much about the campaign, but really about your experience taking a look at some of the mental issues that exist within the LGBTQ plus community. Obviously, you've been running the surveys for a very long time. What have you seen so far that has come through the doors? What are some of the common issues that you are hearing from the community?
Okay, in our community, it's I suppose it's unique in that we are a minority community, and certainly as a community, we are very diverse as well. So imagine a diverse minority community living in this current context in Singapore, where we're under so much pressure in terms of legislation, in terms of social pressures, in terms of institutionalized homophobia and this transphobia as well. So all these very real pressures on a diverse minority community. So just very broadly, I mean, short of generalizing, just very broadly speaking, we do see clients presenting with sort of three sort of broad groups of issues. I mean, one main group of issues we are faced with is, not surprisingly, issues of sexuality and identity. So along the lines of coming out, should I come out? How do I come out? I've already come out to some people. I want to come out to other people as well. And then also the issue of gender identity as well. Again, am I trans? I'm thinking of transitioning, or I'm trans. How do I come out? How do I tell other people? How do I go to work? How do I go to school? And then, of course, you can imagine, even as we talk about gender identity, there's also other aspects of identities as well, whether it's religion, ethnicity, race, nationality. So all of that sort of comes into play, sort of a broad category of sexuality, identity-related issues. And then another group of issues we often work with our clients on will be relationships. I mean, not surprisingly, relationships are a big part of all our lives. Relationships with people we care about, family members, loved ones, people we love, people who love us back, people we wish loved us, people we wish we loved. So all the various relationships are important in our lives, and all the sometimes problems that come with relationships. And the third group, very important as well, a broad group of issues would be, our term is mental health and wellness, psychological wellness, and well-being as well, emotional well-being. So it may include, say, mental illness, as well as other sort of issues along the lines of, I just don't know how to deal with stresses in my life, coping with grief and loss. Perhaps I might put drug use under that category as well, mental well-being, wellness, general health issues, and also issues of self-harm and suicide, very real in our community as well.
Right.
So, very broadly, I've given you these three categories. And all honesty, for many of our clients, the reality is many of these issues are interlinked. So whether it's issues of coming out related to coming out to my family, how is it going to impact their relationships or my relationships with them, and then how this is affecting my emotional, psychological health as well. So that's how we have seen an interesting trend that we've been starting to see in recent years is more parents are increasingly more slowly but surely more comfortable coming forward to get support, not just for their children, but also for themselves. These are parents of kids who identify as LGBTQ. And it kind of makes sense as well because as we all get, or rather the internet generation gets older, these will be the parents who are very internet savvy, they're aware of issues out there. Their teenage children are growing up and becoming out as well. They're seeking help and support. They become aware of Oogachaga and our services. So that's how it's been. There's a trend. That's certainly a trend we'll continue to see. Families, parents in particular, coming for support. And of course, the next trend along the lines of families will be rainbow families. Families of where parents themselves are in same-sex relationships or transgender parents. So, and that's the reality, and that's how our world will continue to change, and our needs will continue to change as well. And the counselling needs of our LGBTQ community, parents and families.
Fantastic, and of course, definitely, Oogachaga as a organization will, of course, adapt to these topics as well. And I think that what's really interesting about what you said was the fact that parents. You allow parents into the room to talk about the topic as well, and I think that's something that is not really as present in a lot of places in which sometimes bringing parents into a discussion may cause a little bit more awkwardness. So I think that's something that's really, really worth highlighting. So of course, yes, indeed. For anyone else that would like to seek any sort of professional help, of course, Oogachaga is available. Yangfa and his team are available for you, and you can of course find out more information on their website. So I just wanted to wrap this up. Do you have any other final words or any other things that you would like to tell to our viewers out there?
Well, to be fair, we've probably said quite a lot to the viewers. We just want to thank you and your team at Prout for doing this as well and continuing the good work that you're all doing.
Thank you very much. And of course, I think we hope to, bring more relevant resources into the platform as well. So on that note, I just would like to wrap this up. Thank you very much, Yangfa, for joining us, for making time on a Sunday evening for this. We really appreciate you spending your evening with us. Thank you very much. And of course,
sure. Thanks, Carl.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And of course, just to wrap up our discussion, if you would like to find out more about this video, you can of course watch the replay, and of course you can head to our website proutapp.com, where you can also find this resource and other current life resources that we've had under the support resources tab. We will be coming back to you next month. We have a very exciting discussion about financial wellness, and we'll be joined by a financial advisor who will tell us a little bit more. So on that note, thank you very much, and we hope to see you on the next Current Live. Bye-bye.